Hi, I'm Kaitlyn Bridgers, and my husband Griffin and I have been at Good Shepherd since 2014. We have 2 children. Madison is 5 and Macy is 3. As a parent, one of my biggest challenges is teaching my children stewardship in this new and ever-changing world. It's important for me to reflect and recognize the lifelong lessons my parents taught me about stewardship and think about how I can instill some of those in my own children. If you give it some thought, I bet you will recognize similar lessons from your childhood or early church life. As children, my siblings and I used to take turns and sometimes fight about who would get to place a check in the offering plate each Sunday. From an early age, I recognized the value of giving, and I wanted so badly to have a hand in the process. Prior to COVID, we were privileged to allow our own girls to place cash in the offering plate as it came around each Sunday, in addition to our stewardship pledge, to allow them to experience the tangible act of giving. While the physical form of offering has changed, the heart and benefit of the act of stewardship has not. In fact, now more than ever is the time to also explore time and talent in addition to treasure. After all, as a child, it was not my own money being put into the plate by me, but the same lessons in stewardship followed me. I volunteered in my childhood and teenage years, participating in services and applying my musical talents playing piano in front of our congregation. For someone who is a perfectionist and is extremely self-conscious about performing in public, this was no small feat. In fact, Jim Wolfe was largely able to convince me to do this talk because it's the one year that it isn't being delivered directly in person. But despite my aversion to having many eyes on me at once, I continue to put myself out there in the name of stewardship. In college, this led to me volunteering for campus ministries, such as Habitat for Humanity, which forced me out of my shell to travel and serve with strangers. Some of my strongest friendships were forged from this ministry. As a young adult in Denver, it is the same spirit of time and talent that led me to put myself out there to serve spiritually and in my career, which led me to my current position, my spouse, and many of my friendships in the area. And finally, it was this same spirit that led me to walk into Good Shepherd by myself one Sunday in June of 2014, and ever since, this has been our church home. Committing time to service has not always been easy. I was a competitive tennis player in college, and between that and my pharmacy studies, I juggled many hours of mandatory obligations. Committing financially has not always felt comfortable during the different phases of our life, especially during periods of job uncertainties and looking at our student loan statements. Life, however, can have an amazing way of showing us that incredible things can occur when we push through those things that aren't easy or comfortable. And while it may not be easy, it is simple to just start with one action and keep going from there. So that brings us to now. Definitely a time that is not comfortable or easy. This is a stewardship environment which we hope is not permanent, but could very well be the new order of things. And this has definitely been a time of suffering for many. In the midst of suffering, scarcity, and isolation, it is difficult to even fathom the weight and loss of extending yourself further to support the body of Christ, which now exists mainly in a virtual form for so many of us. But even with this new normal, we are learning that 2 or more can gather in forms never even imagined. For example, in the Fund Committee's recent French onion soup night, a crowd of 20 families gathered online to cook and share fellowship together. Every Sunday, we are joined by former parishioners who previously could not participate in services due to distance or health, but now can join. And for the first time, we're considering that the affinity for our church family may not be dependent on location, facilities, or territory, but instead on the frequency and quality of connection. Which brings us full circle to our stewardship campaign. There are more ways than ever to connect, and there are more ways than ever to give back. And in this new world, the messaging is not always perfect. Many of us are left scrambling to find information, but we're figuring things out together. And even though the symbols of traditional stewardship have disappeared at least for a time, the spirit of those lessons carries on. Our daughters may not put cash in an offering plate, but they see us log into the church service every Sunday. They may not see us serve in person, but they see us reach out by phone and video to those who need support. They may not hear choir, but they get the thrill of singing without the self-consciousness of being judged, unless Zoom is not muted. There are so many opportunities out there, and we all have our own chance to contribute to stamping a positive mark on 2020. I challenge you to identify those simple, even if they aren't easy, ways that you can contribute that will help us all continue to have this wonderful experience of community, even during this journey in COVID land.